Emotions are not just noise in the system, they are the system. This is what author of Emotional Intelligence, Daniel Goleman, had to say. The system he was referring to is how we navigate our environment. He also said, if your emotional abilities aren't in hand, if you don't have self-awareness, if you are not able to manage your distressing emotions, then no matter how smart you are not going to get very far. And this is particularly true for poker. If you want to be able to make complex, calculated decisions under pressure, under stress, you need to learn to deal with your emotions. You need to also develop a skill that allows you to perform at your best. Having spoken with hundreds of players over the year, I can say the majority of players, if not all players, have had to put a lot of work in to develop this skill. So what is this skill that you need to manage distress and emotions? And how do you go about improving it? That's what we're going to dive into in today's video. So the skill you need to work on is emotional regulation, which you can think of as the ability to experience a wide range of emotions, as well as to calibrate the intensity of your emotions relative to the situation. For example, if you have a losing poker session, it's normal for you to feel annoyed for a short period of time. You should be able to experience that annoyance and then return to your normal emotional state relatively quickly. However, if you were angry or depressed for days after a losing poker session, we could say that your emotional reaction, the intensity of it, is out of alignment, and we need to recalibrate it. You're experiencing too much emotional intensity relative to the situation that's just unfolded. So let's backtrack a bit. And first of all, let's define what we're talking about when we speak about emotions. So emotions can simply be thought of as changes in our subjective experience. As we interact with our environments, we experience different feelings, which we often label as emotions. And these emotions impact how we think and how we behave in our environment. As a poker player, we have lots of changes in our emotional state. So first of all, let's explore why poker causes a lot of emotions to come up. The first reason is there's a lot of uncertainty in the game. You never really know what your opponent has. Are you going to win? Is your strategy winning? What's going to happen next? Uncertainty is really built into the frameworks of poker, which creates this unknown feeling, this I don't know what's going to happen next, which creates a lot of emotions. Another reason a lot of emotions come up is there's a lot of risk involved, and you're risking resources, in this case money, in order to potentially win. Also, you're risking your reputation. You could look stupid, you could make a mistake. So we're constantly taking risks, which again heighten our emotional systems. And then thirdly, it often feels very unfair. If you play poker for any period of time, you will notice some days it just feels like poker's out to get you. You feel annoyed, frustrated, but almost powerless. It feels like, why is this happening to me? Why can't I beat this game? All right, so all of these things cause emotions to come up. Now, rather than just being with our emotions, rather than just experiencing them, often we struggle to experience certain emotions. All right, so some emotions that people struggle with are frustration, fear, anger, overwhelm, insecurity, envy, regret, shame, guilt, anxiety, depression. A lot of these emotions, people don't know how to deal with them. They don't know how to be in control whilst they're experiencing these emotions. So as a kind of safety net, when we can't deal with an emotion, we don't know what to do with it, we often revert to one of two things. The first thing we do is we suppress emotions. All right, we try to get the mind to think of something else, and we kind of push that emotion down. Get it out of sight and get it away from me. And this is like putting your finger over a kettle. When the steam is boiling, you're pushing down that steam, and it works for a little bit, but over time, that bubbles up and it's gonna blow up. All right, the emotion's always trying to come out, and it will come out in different ways. People who suppress emotions will suppress it for certain periods, and then it comes up somewhere else, right? So you can't keep the emotion down. The second thing that people do with emotions they can't handle is they express them. Think of the angry person who lashes out, or if you're angry at the poker tables, you might start going all in, being aggressive with your chips. We use the emotion, the intensity of the emotion, to drive our behavior. All right, again, this doesn't work because it creates this kind of habit loop where we feel the emotion, we act out on it, that gets rid of some of the intensity, we then suppress what's left. So imagine it's heightened emotion like anger, we'd suppress some by lashing out, then there's some energy left in the system which gets suppressed, which people don't really realize they're doing, and then that creates a habit loop of how to deal with that emotion going forward, which is why you build in these behaviors, and angry people very often lash out a lot. All right, another thing that we do is we try to escape emotions. We try to avoid them altogether. And we notice this with behaviors that we do. We'll generally do something to get rid of an emotion. This could be binge eating, spending hours on social media, taking drugs or alcohol, or over-consuming content on the internet. All of these things are an attempt to not have to experience our emotions, to not feel them. Now, none of these things work. None of these approaches are effective, and they actually cause a host of problems. We actually, over time, create a very shielded, protected amount of emotions we can deal with, and anything out of that we struggle with. And we'll use suppression, expression of emotions, or avoidance to stop feeling them. Now, myself, I experienced a lot of troubles with my own emotions that I didn't realize I was using these tactics. So in my 20s or late teens to early 20s, I would party a lot. I would go out with my friends 3 or 4 times a week. And I thought I was just kind of living in the moment and having a fun time. But looking back, I was avoiding and suppressing any emotions that came up. I was partying way too much. I was drunk all the time. And every time I felt a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of unease, I'd message a friend, who's out tonight? Let's party. And I just drink. And lo and behold, now I'm feeling great. I'm feeling awesome. And it worked in the short term. So I remember going through a large phase of just not feeling emotions, always feeling out high or hungover and low, but using alcohol as a tool to suppress and avoid emotions. Now, when I got into poker in my early 20s, at 23 I started, I stopped drinking to focus on poker. And I noticed emotions started to come up. Insecurities, a bit of frustration, a bit of anxiety, a bit of self-doubt about what I was doing in my life. Again, I didn't like this. So instead of dealing with that emotion, what did I do? I reverted to my old tactics, but this time I didn't use alcohol. I used being a workaholic, and I actually spent all my time playing poker. And I would grind, and not create any space to think. I'd play lots of tables for lots of hours, and that was my way of not having experienced emotions. Feel frustration, feel self-doubt, work harder, do more, which led me to play massive volume for large periods of time. So there's definitely a plus point of that. But at the same time, I wasn't dealing with my emotions. It was only when I stopped playing super high volume and realized, wait a second, these emotions, no matter what I do, they keep trying to come up. And it wasn't until I learned to be with those emotions, to experience those emotions fully, that I actually had a lot of growth, personal growth myself, where now I can sit with emotions. Now I'm comfortable with a wider range. During this part of my life, there was lots of emotions that I just didn't like experiencing. I almost sheltered myself away from them. But now, just by being with them, which I'm going to talk about in today's video, you can actually learn to be comfortable under a wide range of emotions, which drastically improves not only your performance, but also the quality of your life. It's important to acknowledge and experience our feelings rather than trying to shut them off. Now, Laurie Dechen, who's the author of The Tiny Buddha, said, "You don't have to be positive all the time. It's perfectly okay to feel sad, angry, annoyed, frustrated, scared, or anxious. Having feelings doesn't make you a negative person. It makes you human. All of your feelings are valid, yet most people fight against or resist their feelings. They don't feel comfortable with a wide range of these feelings, so they push them away and they try to suppress them. Now, if you want to have success in poker, if you want to have a fun, enjoyable experience of life, you need to learn how to deal with your emotions. The first step in this process is increasing your emotional awareness. Emotional awareness means knowing what you are feeling and why. It's the ability to identify what you are feeling moment to moment and how those feelings are changing your thoughts and your behaviors. For example, you need to become aware of the emotions that you're experiencing on a regular basis at the poker tables. Are you someone who experiences a lot of anger or frustration? Or do you notice feelings of fear or anxiety throughout your grind? Our emotions drive our behavior, and if we're not aware of changes in our state and what we're experiencing, we have no way to direct our behavior. So we need to take back control, and we need to re-engage with our bodies, re-engage with what we're experiencing. This is something I had to learn. I know I was shut off from what I was experiencing in my body for a long time. I was going through emotions, but I just wasn't checked in. I wasn't aware of the changes. As a result, my behaviors were sporadic. I was suppressing emotions, often acting on emotions also, and had no control. So here's what you need to do to start building emotional awareness. The first step is to ask yourself, as you're going through your days, what are you feeling? All right, imagine as you're going through your grinds, things aren't going your way, you're having a challenging session. What are you feeling? What emotions are coming up? What are your experience of that situation? Is it frustration? Is it anger? Do you feel bored, depressed occasionally? What emotions are you feeling? Now, having worked with hundreds of players, both privately and with my coaching programs, most players have 2 or 3 emotions that come up often. Your own cocktail, your own subjective experience. So get in tune with those, get familiar with them, put labels to them, and really understand what's going on with them, where they're coming from. All right, the next step is to ask yourself, what physical sensations do you notice? What do you notice in your body from a physical perspective? Is it tension in your hands when you're feeling angry or frustrated? Do you notice heat in your body when you're feeling heightened emotions? Do you notice butterflies in your stomach when you're feeling fearful? Again, these are all things I had completely shut off from. I had no real awareness that I was going through these emotions and feelings because I'd shut off from them. I went straight to my mind, or I distracted myself, and I got out of tune with what was going on in my body. So you need to regain this awareness. And finally, what thoughts are you having? What thoughts are going alongside these feelings? Is it thoughts of aggression towards your opponents? Is it thoughts of self-doubt towards yourself or frustration? Is it thoughts of despair? Or whatever it is, think what are the thoughts that you're having that are going with these emotions. You'll soon realize that the emotions and the mind and the body is interconnected right here. And what our emotions we're experiencing, the mind often tells very similar stories and thought patterns that go with it. So for the next few days, pay attention to this. Watch it. Be an observer. Ask yourself, what feelings do you struggle to experience? What feelings do you suppress or try to escape from? What feelings do you express and act on, often irrationally? Really learn to pay attention to this. And you can learn a very important skill. You can learn to feel your feelings. Now, on the Mechanics of Poker podcast, which I co-host with Dewako, I recently did an interview with Barack Wisbrobe, who's a high-stakes online crusher. And he said something super powerful, which I want to share with you today. He said the most important lesson he learned in his whole poker career that helped him to get to high stakes was learning to feel the pain. Not to avoid the pain, but to experience the pain of losing, to experience the pain of self-doubt, to experience the pain of not knowing if he was good enough. On a bad day, not trying to override that feeling, but feeling it, fully experiencing it. And this is such a powerful lesson. This is such an important thing that we need to learn. How do we be with an emotion? Not try to fix it, not try to express it, but try to be with the feeling. And when you do this, you'll realize something very magical happens. You realize that the emotion can't hurt us. The emotion is just energy passing through. If we don't resist it or cling to it, it will move through quite quickly. And also, it doesn't stay around for long. Everything we're experiencing is just a kind of fleeting moment. Some emotions last a little bit longer, but relatively, all emotions are passing through. And then we're going to return to our normal baseline. Also, the emotions are telling you that something happens that you need to pay attention to. Something that's important or interesting to you or valuable to you has changed or is on the line. You feel threatened in some way, or you feel disappointed from what you've done. All of this is something to learn from. Learning to be with the emotions, learning just to feel your feelings. So over the next few days, when your opponent hits a 2-outer, when you bubble a final table of a tournament, be with the pain, be with the feeling. Don't try to resist it. Don't try to fight against it. Just sit with it. Just be okay with it. And if you do this, if you learn to do this over time, you will widen your range of emotions you can deal with. You will widen your experience of life overall, and you'll realize you're better at everything you do. You're not wasting time and energy on fighting emotions and trying to suppress them, you're okay with them. You can let them come and you can let them go. So that's your work. Good luck.